Hello. Welcome.
Eventually we got there.
Wait, I got to turn the music on, the background music too. Hey, what's this button do?
What does this one do?
Yeah.
What does this button do? Why does this button keep destroying everything?
Little technical difficulty. Welcome to episode 38 of Lawfully Chaotic. Thank God for StreamYard, man. To get
Make
back
it a
up
lot
and-
easier, don't
Oh
they?
my God! If that was
Oh my
Zoom,
gosh.
it would be 8:20 before we were actually on. Anyway, welcome and thank you for joining myself and my awesome co-hosts as always, Sharon Berrybot and storyteller Jason from TTRPG Academy.
Technology is
Hi,
really showing your
everybody.
guys' age, huh?
I'm telling you, like there should be a big red button. Don't touch this.
Well, hi,
Hey, Fatal.
guys.
Thanks for joining us. So tonight we're having a Q&A. Whatever you want to ask,
Ooh.
within reason, of course. I mean, this is kind of a
Nonsense.
half family show, but whatever you want to ask, we will do our best to answer. Sharon's going to lead us in a Q&A session. But before we start, as always, few announcements. We will be off next week for the Thanksgiving holiday, and then returning after that and doing every Thursday through December 8th, at which point we will be taking a break for the rest of the year to get some creative work done. Other than that, Sharon and Jason, you have any announcements? Sharon, any announcements?
Not at the top of my head, but I do have a Saturday game for the Green Lands campaign that I play on the Twitch channel from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. over on the TTRPG's Twitch channel and also on YouTube. Hey! We're
And
still
actually
running.
also on D&D Club and also on RPG on Lawfully Chaotic, right? Jason, you know where you're streaming all this stuff out. Yes?
Actually, we will not be streaming on D&D Club.
Okay.
We're only streaming on RPG&Co, Lawfully Chaotic, and TTRPG Academy.
There you go.
Hey!
The Adam has officially kind of like doesn't want to deal with it anymore, and I can't blame him. It can be a little overwhelming when you don't really
Okay.
have the time to do it. So,
Well, if you want to play, you're looking for a game, or you want to DM, check
D&D
out
Club,
D&D Club. But
which we are
otherwise,
currently working on a lot of artwork for that. I've gotten agreements from 3 different groups so far. Both my Sunday groups. I think there's one Wednesday group that's given agreements. So hopefully, after all the agreements are done and we get reorganized after Thanksgiving, we'll be bringing maybe between 4 or 5 new shows
that's
to
fantastic.
share with everybody that will stretch between Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Friday, of course, the traditional Saturday Grain Lands, and then a couple Sunday games. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll get it all organized during the holiday break because I will be shutting the studio down for an entire week next week. I will not be running games. I'm going to be exclusively working on the final bits and bobs of content for the 3 new games that are
Awesome.
going to be spinning up.
Awesome.
So
Well,
it's going to be
definitely
a
exciting news.
busy 2023, folks. Busy 2023.
Yeah, definitely. And it's exciting that we get to stream out all the games. You get to archive all of these games on all of our channels now. That is very cool. Fatal, since this is a Q&A, I will answer your question. My favorite color is like aquamarine.
Ooh!
Hayden, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Hi, Aiden.
Okay, well, with that, let's jump in.
Well,
Sharon, you
Wait,
want
hold
What?
the phone.
What?
What's going on with you, Brian? Like,
Me?
you got to ask us
Yeah.
what's going on in our world. What's going on in yours?
Oh, thank you.
Oh my goodness.
I've been juggling a lot of stuff lately. A lot of some house projects. I just had my garage floor redone, which sounds boring, but
Ooh.
it's extremely exciting because now the garage is like another room in the house because I have this nice, clean epoxy floor, and I rearranged my whole garage. And now all I want to do is sit out there and look at it.
Ooh, how nice.
Yeah. And then I've got my roof repair getting done. So I've just had a lot on my mind lately in addition to juggling everything. So forgive me if I'm a little scattered, but as usual, we've got a lot coming down the pike. Oh, I do have one announcement. A friend of mine, Gus, over at Long Rest Games, and I are going to be putting out a card game.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. He asked me if I would be a part of creating that, and of course I said yes. So that should be coming probably. Well, I don't want to jump the gun because we've just started, but probably Q1 2023. So look for that and check out Long Rest Games.
Awesome.
Are you guys doing a Kickstarter or just a traditional?
No, we're gonna try doing a Kickstarter.
Cool.
That's
fun.
So it should be pretty fun.
That's awesome.
It's so early in the process. I don't want to ruin it, so I'm not going to give any spoilers. Is that an African or European swallow?
Yeah.
I was actually gonna, take it down a dirty path, but
Well, I don't know. So anyway, that's
name is Tom.
That's my life. So Sharon, why don't you take it away and hey Torch, thank you for joining us also. Another regular. Sharon, what are we talking about tonight?
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lawfully Chaotic Q&A edition. For those of you listening in the future, or not the past, because that's kind of weird. Unless you're like a time traveler or something, then, if you're in the chat, say hi, whatever. So if you guys are listening, feel free to write down your questions and hold them for the next session. Yes.
And we never say this, but if you're joining us later on VOD, because you can't watch us live, thank you also for watching the episodes. I just wanted to give a shout out to all of you who may watch after the fact. So thank you for that.
Saying hello to those lovely ear holes. Hi. So tonight's discussion is a freestyle session where everybody can join in and lob questions to one another, and we'll give long and elaborate answers. And actually, to start it off, thank you, Fatal. My favorite color is actually, it's a toss between green and pink. So
my favorite color is the ability to see. Does that count?
That counts.
The full spectrum.
So basically, the visible spectrum.
Yeah, my favorite color is the visible spectrum.
All right.
All I see is gray.
Right. Well, that's because we're old. We appreciate that, Barry.
I see gray.
Oh, and I see these gray people.
All right, so we have some questions already prepped up from the interwebs, the D&D community, mostly straight from Reddit, and we are going to start off today with player questions.
Wait, you sure these aren't from Twitter?
I mean, it's a mishmash, to be fair.
These aren't from verified Twitter accounts?
Oh, no. We're not going to draw any ire. No.
It only costs $8 to be verified.
Sorry.
So the first question or topic that I'm going to toss to you guys is building character identity. I think it's good as a player to make up massive amounts of backstory, even if no one will hear it. I think it helps create an identity that for that person and helps you make decisions for that character. It creates depth. What are your guys' thoughts? Should you get like 15 pages of backstory just because, or just go it down to 2?
As someone who runs a lot of games, as much as I appreciate a very detailed backstory, I think for me, a page is enough for me.
Really?
However,
Jason's at the point with a number of games is like, I don't fucking care, just roll the dice.
Well, no, because sometimes I find their own creativity kind of inspiring to me. So sometimes what they don't necessarily play out their backstory becomes, meat for the bone for me, and it I can use it to do a lot of creative stuff. But I always have a hard time believing that a level 1 or level 2 or level 3 character has that much maturity in the world. Leave a little space for you to grow, right? Like kind of write your story up to that kind of level that you think you're going to launch into, and then leave some space for you to add to it as you move through the world.
Twisted
Interesting.
UO. I used to make
Yeah.
elaborate backstories in my mind. Now I make a general arc and let it play out based on group dynamics or experience.
Yeah, that's healthy. It's healthy.
By the way, welcome, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, we've been playing together for years, but I kind of do the same thing. I get a little bit more elaborate. Well, no, I would say that we're all in our games. We're all about the same level of detail, but it is definitely backstory more than motivations. Okay, I do go a little bit further into it than he does.
I was gonna say that liar got exclamation points.
Yeah,
That had feeling behind it.
That
There's
emotion.
the fence on fire emoji. No, but yeah, I go a little bit deeper into it, but it's interesting because I think there is, and Jason, I also agree with what you said. I mean, if and you're coming at it from a DM standpoint,
Right.
Almost always, yeah.
right? I actually answer that question as a player, and I think absolutely yes, you should have a backstory.
But even if like the other players don't ever get to like uncover that, it's only like DM
Well,
knowledge, really.
True, but it gives the DM food for plot hooks, for side quests, and it certainly also gives you information even as a player, which is why I was going to say I agree with Matt that I don't do like motivation and character traits as much as just a backstory arc, because I think that is important to develop during the game. But I do think a detailed backstory helps. It helps both the player and the DM kind of shape that character and evolve that character throughout play, even if it doesn't ever like truly come out as common knowledge.
Yeah,
Well, I
because
think-
it becomes an advantage for the player, because like you get like, even when I was writing for Mara, like I get so involved because like I feel like I'm learning about her even though
Yeah.
I'm writing about her, which is so weird because like she feels like an actual other person, and it's like something that I want to respect. Like, you know, like, oh, I'm like thinking like, what was she doing when she was a kid, or how does she feel about this situation? Like, if you
Well, I'm
keep
also
on
wondering, a question for you, and I know we've talked about this, just touched on it a couple times in the past. What's your view of Mira now from a backstory perspective to where she is in the world of the arc? Does it feel completely different now than how she came into the campaign?
It's different because she has a defined purpose now. There is something on the horizon for her to look forward to, because like at the beginning it's her trying to, she had questions and she wasn't really sure if like the path that she was taking was like, is it going to lead to her answers, is she going to be fulfilled in that? And you know, sure enough,
my favorite part of that story that we've done so far with your backstory, I think, is when you did the dream walk. I think that was amazing. That really, the amount of RP that we were able to do in that, you know, and that was just awesome. It was like, and the idea, I think one of the things that I've really wanted to do with the idea of the Grain Lands is I love to play with time. And the fact that the Dreamwalk sequence was you talking to your future you was awesome. You know,
that's very cool.
Yeah,
just
it was
talking
like
to myself.
Yeah, but it was like her.
I'm not crazy.
Like her sitting on a rock looking 30, 40 years older. And then the two of them having a conversation about the idea of fate and the idea of what you can and can't control. And, you know, and this, yeah, that's a well put.
Sounds like a Seth Rogen, James Franco movie to me.
Yeah, I think I like it. I like the question put that way as well. How does Mira see herself now? Like, other than the backstory, like, does the backstory see herself? Does she see herself differently now?
She's definitely a person that I think a lot has been put upon her shoulders now. and I think she feels like she has to be sure-footed in what she does going forward now. Like I said, she has a horizon that she sees now, and like she's marching towards it. It's with purpose now.
Yeah.
And there's
See,
people
that is
that are
that.
counting on her.
That's
that
really
reason.
awesome. That backstory. You see, so kind of along those lines, one thing I've learned, like when we have to make our level 4 decision, do you take an attribute bump, stat bump, or take a feat? This is like a 3-day process. Okay.
Well, I don't
And
know. Is it really if it aligns with your backstory?
well, that's exactly where I'm going. If you
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
backstory, sometimes now if you're a min-maxer, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Right.
That aside, I hate min-maxing. Okay. To a point. All right. To me, it's always form over function, if you will.
Fair.
So the backstory a lot of times can help you make those decisions when it's a toss-up. Like, do I take the 2 points or do I take a feat? If I take a feat, is it this one or this one? A lot of times the backstory can help inform that, and answer those questions and allow you to make those decisions that
Right.
then just continue to add to the backstory. Even like, another example is multi-classing. A lot of times multi-classing can seem very abrupt. It's like, boom, I'm adding a class in this, obviously because I want these mechanics. But if it fits with a backstory, it just makes the character that much richer, and I think it makes it easier to play, and I think it makes it more interesting to play with for other characters.
Well, and I think it brings up another good point about creating your backstory with identity is when you could create it with other players. Like, as I've done 3 0 sessions lately, a lot of those 0 sessions spent some time talking about backstory and also starting points. Asking your players, hey, do any of you want to know each other before we start playing the campaign? And if you do you want your backstory to reflect that, right? So the idea that 2 players can get together and write a combined backstory with each other, I think is a great way to kind of, bond the table a little bit more successfully as well.
And, quite frankly, it's just a fun thing to do between sessions. There's only so much fiddling you can do with mechanics, and then you're like, okay, my character's done, and I can't wait to play. You can always tweak your backstory between sessions.
Work on it constantly, grow with it as you go through the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like the way we phrased it, or I like the way Barry phrased it from a standpoint of, character identity. It helps you get immersed into it as a player. You've created this really kind of curated identity of what you think you're going to be. But I would also say it's just as interesting to watch people fall out of love with that too. It happens from time to time where they've got this great backstory. They put together this great idea of what they thought they wanted. And then they finally start dabbling with those mechanics by level 7. And they're like, I don't think I really like this character, and that's okay. That's okay if that happens, because you can always write another backstory, write another character, and build another opportunity to fall in love with your character.
Or that character grows and evolves and changes. Like
that's always possible. Well, Torch brings up a good point. When you join a little late to a campaign, that could be very influential on how you develop your character and backstory as well. Your character backstory can almost become a little more NPC-ish as opposed to traditional PC, and it can create some unusual but kind of cool situations too.
So Aiden, you said you just can't make characters at all. I'm curious as to what you mean by that.
You know what? And actually that's a good segue into the next question is, what do you think about players creating special or just normal characters? The post goes,
I'm sorry, I have to ask, define normal.
Well, this is what the post said.
No, certainly not you or I.
The post said, I made a completely normal character. Norm has taken up adventuring
That's fucking awesome.
Has taken up adventuring as part of his midlife crisis. He spent his whole life watching the same gate and 2 blocks of city, and he regrets not going out and seeing the world. He is a level 1 human fighter at the age of 43.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's pretty.
Okay,
That's such a good.
see, now I would argue that even that short little blurb
There's a
right,
lot.
this is the copywriter in me. I dabble in copywriting when I do advertising. Okay, even that little blurb is a fantastic palette for
It
that
is.
character to go out
Yeah.
into the world. And there are so many ways that you could play that. So
Well,
I mean, I picture like Clark Griswold going out as a fucking fighter.
as a first level fighter. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've got a couple players that sure they enjoy the idea of a backstory, but they've been in a couple of my campaigns already, and at the beginning of those campaigns, they just gave me like a couple bullet points and some basic background and said, this is my backstory. And I'm like, you're giving me a lot of creativity here. Are you sure? And they say yes. And I go, okay, well, let's have some fun with it. A minimalized, normalized backstory like this example can almost be equally as creative for the DM, because you're almost having that open conversation with the player that you're like, oh, so you're giving me a little bit of license here. You want me to be creative. And if they say yes, then, okay, well, here are some rails for us to work with. And as long as these rails sound okay to you, I've got some great ideas and they'll play out in the game. And I think that lends to the idea of the surprise of your character, right? The surprise journey, the infamous hero's journey of a character,
Yeah.
So
now, to be fair, to actually answer the question, Sharon, so Twisted always, so I'm currently playing a gnome paladin Dhampir, which is like a half vampire. So I had to spend some time on the backstory to make sense of that. And so far, it's working. I'm at level 3 already, and so far I don't hate it. But I always like to play cockamamie character and race combinations. We've talked about that before. And, there's always got to be a reason why. So I'm almost fuck you.
Sir.
You're still giving me shit about my character. And we have this we have this conversation all the time. Like, I'm always like, oh, the level 1 fighter, human fighter is so boring. Why would you even play that? Well, I think so. Again, I gravitate to special characters, if you will, but I think that it really comes down to the player. And sometimes I will admit that such a white bread supposed first level character can really just be an amazing, like I said, an amazing open blank, palette to create with. And sometimes, even though I always like to do it, and I would say that I'm like 60-40 on these character combos that I make, working where I like them, and some of them just fail miserably. But for me, it's part of the fun of the experimentation. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, because like when you think of D&D, you kind of think of like these
Exactly.
really powerful
It's like, I like to kind of be a walking contradiction.
Yeah. And I think like when you put in like a normal character too, it kind of makes you like feel very grounded in a sense. Like you're not taking the encounters for granted as much, because now you have this person that's just a normal Joe who can actually die, and like, you are like superpowered beings who are just like, oh, I could just revivify whatever, like I think it humanizes the campaign and the encounters a little bit more because of that.
Well, not only that, but I think it entices the player to be extra creative, so that it's not just, red shirt guy waiting to die in number 7 encounter, but, so that there is something to it. So even though that's not what I like to play, I actually really admire people who can take a very basic character and play it really well and make it engaging, not only for them, but for everybody else at the table, and even people who may be watching a stream. I think it takes a lot of talent to do that personally.
Yeah. It's a lot of brain power. Like I think like with that level 1 human fighter, like I'm thinking like, okay, this person, like he's very like mature in his worldview about things. And like what if he comes across like people who don't actually understand what's going on out there, you know, like he'll hello.
Hey, Andrew, what's up?
Evidently, he's in Mexico.
There's no sound in Mexico. Mexico is on mute. Well, thank you for joining us regardless, Andrew. Good to have you here.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty interesting. I think it would be interesting to play a normal character.
I think it would actually be really kind of cool. I mean, if
Like,
somebody,
it's
if a DM
challenge.
told me that I had to be at a table like this, I would say, "Fuck you, this is ridiculous." But in a way, I think it would be cool to have a table of like all humans and just fighter, rogue, you know, like your most basic characters, and just see what you can do with that.
Yeah, just like a farmer that just decided to leave.
Yeah,
Are
right.
Are there any game systems that are built around normal characters?
I mean, that's a.
Don't
that's
speak
a-
at once.
I mean, I don't know. That's a
I'm
good
trying to
que-
think.
I mean, every game system that you kind of dabble in or play with is all about the.
You know what? I did there it is. It's $1 million idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to create a role-playing game based around just going to work.
Yeah.
It's a simulation.
It's a simulation. Didn't we just come off a 2-year simulation?
We did. Yeah, when we're off it, by the way. It's so funny because on the Oculus, my son insisted on getting work or office simulator or something like that. I'm like, are you fucking serious? And he's like,
No,
yeah, it's
I
great.
work in
And
an
he's like,
office. Don't do it.
oh my God.
You'll feel a pit of blackness.
I
Don't
cannot
do
think of
it.
I cannot
Seinfeld,
think of
the
game
RPG.
system. I can't think of the games. What about
I
Twisted
did
Loop?
see
Or,
a
I'm sorry,
Monty. I
Tales
did
from the
see.
Loop?
Well, maybe no. Tales from the Loop is pretty sci-fi steampunk kind of.
Okay.
But no, I did see a Monty Python RPG out there.
Seinfeld.
Oh
You
my
know.
god.
There you go. That would be fucking awesome. Okay, today's encounter is go get soup from this really irate soup guy.
chef.
Roll for charisma for stand up.
But I'm also wondering, from a DM's perspective, when you guys talk about a level 1 character that's Norm, right? Does that actually allow for a lot more creativity of developing them in
Well, that's a good point,
the
too.
active campaign, right?
Yeah.
So you've got, let's say you just have your basic fighter build moving through this interesting world. You know, does that world get to shape the backstory of that character? Because no real kind of backstory exists at that point.
I haven't heard of Kids on Bikes. I've heard of
I've
the
heard of Kids on
show.
Bikes.
What's the
RP
show?
or Guild Superior played Kids on Bikes one stream, and it was
Oh.
really interesting. It was kind of fun watching them play it.
Actually, wasn't there that that Jenga game, that Jenga horror game? Like you're normie people, but you're trying to survive a serial killer coming after you. I forget what it's
Yeah, I've
called.
heard. Yeah, but is that really normal?
Okay, but then if that's really your definition of normal, then you truly are talking about Job Simulator, TTRPG.
Pretty much. I mean, at that point, right?
Although
It's
I
like
do
that
like-
classic meme of all the orcs and goblins and elves sitting at a table
Playing
playing. Yeah, it's this great game about you go to work as a lawyer. Yeah, I'm a lawyer. He's a doctor, and she's a teacher, and we live out this life in a capitalist environment, and we strive to get to the top.
yeah, it's Houses and Humans.
Houses and
Houses and humans. I love it.
I've seen that before.
It's great. I absolutely love it. It's great.
That's actually real. That would be a really fucking funny game if somebody actually came out with that. Like you're an orc, but you have to go to work, and that's the crux of the encounter. Is like, how do you go to work as an orc? It'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Although
I don't get a lot of vanilla players. I
Yeah.
just, it never really happens at all anymore.
What were you gonna say, Brian?
I was going to say that idea, though, of like taking normal people, and you could argue that other than a superhero game or where you're playing aliens, or you could argue that in D&D, if you're a human, you're normal. But let's just say like literally normal. What was the movie with what was the movie with Jason Bateman? It's
Born
a few years.
Identity.
No,
Not that one?
No, Jason Bateman, not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said what's his
It
name?
was like The Game or Game Night or something. I think it was Game Night,
Yeah.
where they got together for this game night, but somebody's crazy brother came, and it got him like roiled in this freaking weapons deal or drug deal or something like that. But they're suburban couples,
What?
like navigate. Yeah. So actually, I think that would kind of be a really cool role-playing game where if it literally was like you are, suburban dad and mom, and there is, some kind of crazy caper going on. Also, the movie The Burbs, you remember with Tom
Yeah, I
Hanks?
remember The Burbs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like something like that, where it's like the boring suburbs, but something strange is happening.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool
It
game.
totally reminds me of the Dadlands with the McFarlanes. I don't know if you guys have listened to it. It's great. It's just a bunch of dads going out into like this magical realm, totally normal dudes trying to go and find their sons. It's super funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Game
See,
night,
Torch
yeah.
knows it. Well,
Game
Stranger
night.
Thing. Yeah, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Again, yep. Yeah, you're right. Stranger Things is a perfect example. Well, except for 11. Stranger Things is a perfect example. A bunch of normal people taking on, extra normal tasks.
It's funny. It's really got me thinking about the idea of, like I was thinking about the game Paranoia.
Oh God, yeah.
That's
Yep.
kind of normal people put in stressful situations.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I think I'm literally sitting here looking at 30 years of Paranoia collection that's been recently given to me for curation. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, Paranoia comes pretty close because the theme of that one is kind of normal people in an environment that becomes stressful.
Yeah, that's a good call. You might be right. That might be the
there's that
closest
one.
thing. Yeah.
I mean,
Sure it's
but
not the theme of life.
Right.
That's a you I mean, you kind of hit the head on the nail on that one.
You get your tax bill. Roll your accounting skill on a D20.
That would be funny.
Now I'm actually thinking about writing a game like
another one. Actually, now that I think about it,
suburban role.
Traveler could have qualified for that. I mean, it had some extra kind of like over the top things, but it was one of those ones where the story starts very simply and then gets kind of heroic and kind of in depth and advanced.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know. Do players want to play normal people? Is that something you
now
want to do?
that sounds really interesting.
I don't know. Now it kind of sounds fun. If I could be like suburban soccer dad, but all of a sudden like aliens
pull up in
invaded.
your Bardo and your 12 orc kids wearing soccer uniforms.
Like you have you've got a butcher knife and a flashlight and a fire extinguisher, and there's aliens coming into your neighborhood. What do you do?
It presents a unique challenge. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
Sure, that's great.
Oh, it's certainly
now I got
a
another
challenge.
thing to add to my list of things to do is write a fucking role-playing game.
Well, I mean, Deadlands, kind of, right?
Yep.
Just Western theme.
There we go.
Yeah, Torch, just go.
All right, should we, by the way, chat, this is a Q&A, so if you guys have questions, now that there's a few people in chat, lay them on us. If not,
I have a question for chat if anyone wants to answer it. How do you inspire yourself to start a backstory? Do you go into pop culture? Do you go to your favorite book? Do you turn your 8-year-old kid into a barbarian rage monster on paper? I mean, I'm always intrigued by the fact that there's 50 players in the games that I'm in, and they all just
have you met my son?
No, well, I
When
mean, I
did
see
you
him in
meet-
the background
when did
from
you
time
meet
to
my
time, but
Also, what's your favorite color, chat?
Yeah, that's right. Everybody's got to. Everyone who asked.
I
That
don't
was
know
Fable,
what my
right?
favorite color is. Wah!
Like, way.
True.
But then it gets really fun when you start creating characters. Like you just go on an adventure, literally just writing about them.
Yeah.
Well, what I
that's
really love to watch the players do too, to Fatal's point, I love watching their backstory match their character sheet. Like
Yes.
they put foibles in their backstory,
Yeah.
they put passions, and they put kind of like external things on their backstory that as they develop their character or their character sheet, you can see it in their character development too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's always fun to watch kind of play out. That's always fun to watch play out.
Well, you know what's funny? Like in our last, how am I not saying session right? Oh, there it is.
Okay. How am I not saying session right?
Session.
See, you just did it again.
Session.
Damn it! Someone bring me 500 cc's vodka. Stat.
If in the previous game, there's actually, this is a secret. So chat, y'all keep it between us. Shh. So in the last session,
This is a secret. Don't tell anyone.
super secret. So I put in kind of in one of like Mayra's mechanics is that I wanted to understand what it would look like for her to be mad. So because like she's a very nice and calm character and she's very like diplomatic to a certain point. But I wondered like what would it look like if she got mad?
You know what just popped into my head?
Hmm.
Unikitty from the Lego Movie. Remember that character?
Yeah, but I don't know how I feel about it popping in your head.
It's this little unicorn cat made of Legos
Yeah.
from Cloud Cuckoo Land, and you know, like, oh, everything is great. Blah,
Oh,
blah, blah.
Cloud
And then-
Cuckoo Land. That's right.
Yeah,
Now
and
it
then
makes
when she
sense.
gets mad, she just like it's like the apocalypse.
Yeah. So in the last session, Mayra got mad and she set herself on fire. She turned into a fire elemental and got really mad. That was her anger showing. And I wanted
That's
to tell
cool.
the group that. And I was just like, and then like it's perfect because you know her name is Mayra. It means light. She's fire, light.
That's awesome. See? Backstory.
Everything gets connected,
Everything.
even with
So,
the name.
and to put that in perspective, they took on a Shadowfell creature who had tied,
Shadowfell, darkness.
who had tied the severed heads of each of the betrayer gods to its body, and it was looking for the books that these guys have gathered up. But he does, they didn't use magic in the contemporary sense, right? They used illusionary magic, and they were like, why can't I see any kind of arcane activity? What is going on that I can't see what's going on? And we played the whole 3 hours, right, Bear? Wasn't it
Yeah.
almost like 3 solid hours of combat? Which, when you're level, 15, 16 now, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens. But once again, I feel like backstories shape those opportunities
Yeah.
of your playstyle.
The Shadowfell is not necessarily evil. It's more about stagnation.
Yep,
Mhm.
it is.
The Raven Queen and this should actually be another topic because the Raven Queen and the Shadowfell to me is one of the most awesome bits of lore in D&D because it is so dichotomous, you know.
Well, that's a
can
good
we do
subject
a lore
matter.
episode?
I think we could do not only a lore episode, probably do a couple lore episodes,
Yeah.
but also do deities. Do an episode
Yeah.
about using deities
That would be
in
cool.
your campaign.
All right, somebody write this down so we don't forget it.
Barry, you better write it down.
A Raven Queen episode.
Yeah.
Let's move. I want to get to these other questions that you found, Sharon, from DMs out in the community and chat. Give us some questions. I mean, put us on the spot.
DM, as a
Put
player.
us on the spot.
So we'll start off with the DM questions, titled "My players are scared of encounters."
Good job.
All right.
You did your job.
Yeah, next.
Wait,
DM,
what-
you win.
Well, here's what they said. I tend to hype up an enemy a bit or give my players information about a fight, creating a sense of urgency. Sometimes they would be so intimidated by an upcoming battle, they decide not to fight and head back home. How do I encourage my players to be more adventurous? Oh my God.
Okay.
You're like,
Well, it's
"Nah,
really
you know
funny.
what?
Can I
'cause
field this one
wait,
first?
Wait.
All right, go ahead.
I've got a funny quip on this one. Okay. So my Monday night group, right, are made up of some of my other groups that we've been playing for many, many years. And so I've got this killer NPC. It's a lot of fun for me to play. I got the voice down, and I'm like 2 words into starting a conversation with one of the players where they are in the location of the situation, and they all agree to immediately kill him because he's obviously the big bad. So they do that all the time now. I've got them so paranoid.
Oh,
Like every
no.
NPC they run into, they're just, oh, he's the big bad. He's got everybody's a big bad. If we kill
That's
everybody,
murder
then we
hoboing.
win.
That's
Not
murder
really. It's
hoboing.
paranoia. Murder
That's
hobo has a
PTSD.
sense
There's a
of
very
Jason.
fine line between paranoia and murder hobos.
Murder hobos have no cause.
That's true.
Paranoid
Yeah.
people have.
How much is
cause.
this drink? I cut his head off. You're right.
What were you going to say, Brian?
So I was going to say, so one of my challenges as a DM, I have 2 main challenges as a DM. One is timing one-shots. Still something I'm working on. Okay. A 3-hour one-shot for me takes 6 to 8 hours, but that's a different conversation. Exactly. Different motivations, similar results. So yeah, I would say it's a fine line between murder hobos and paranoid. But my other challenge as a DM, especially when you get to high levels, is actually providing encounters that do make the players feel like they could actually die.
Right.
I think there has to be that anxiety. Otherwise, what's the freaking point of playing? Right?
Yeah, I would agree.
It
with
just
that.
gets boring.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to do with high level characters. So I would say to this specific question, whoever out there in the interwebs asked this, that their players choose not to fight because they're too scared. My
Go
answer
home.
to that is go home, find new fucking players because they're really, they're just fucking wimps. That is over the top. If those are your
Yeah.
players, then you need to sit down and have a conversation with your players about what the game is really about. There should always be anxiety in an encounter that I could lose this character that I am invested in. Otherwise, what is the point of playing? That's
Yeah,
my
there has to
opinion.
be risk and reward.
And I think hyping up encounters, even if it's, I go back to, if you look at the Lord of the Rings trilogy, when that started very small. It's one of the reasons I love that story, is because it started very, very small. It was 2 hobbits going out into the world for the first time, venturing out. And even, at the very beginning, if they met a goblin, that would have been a major encounter for the 2 of them. That's the way it should be, in my opinion. So
Right.
Well, and
every encounter at every level, in my opinion, should be anxiety inducing for characters.
with the intent of being fun at the same time. I don't necessarily want
Right.
to trigger people.
I'm
either.
not talking about triggering, and I'm not talking about setting out to kill your party
right
at
to
every
create conflict
chance.
beyond
No,
what.
not at all. I'm talking about
encounter.
providing an engaging and exciting encounter.
Mm.
If it's
think
like,
you have to-
I'm not going to die ever, so I'm just going to keep rolling dice, and then it just gets boring.
But that's a fair point, because one of the things I like about this question, are they scared of the encounters in a positive way versus a negative way, right?
Right.
Like dissect that statement. This statement makes it feel like they might be a little scared on the negative side of it, and therefore they're not having normal adventures. How do you address that? Like, how do you And I would say that there's always been that long conversation about encounter balance. And I don't think that really exists. I think that's just with the random number generator, it's very hard to do encounter balance, but I'll say don't do combat encounters all the time.
That is a very dark line.
No, I agree that Fatal. I agree
like
100%.
a pursuit encounter, a puzzle encounter, an escape encounter. If you kind of parse out the encounters with a lot of unique flavor of how encounters can play out, I think it really softens that concern a little bit.
Fatal. I agree totally. If the danger
What was
does
the question?
not. So the question is, how willing are you as DMs to kill off a PC? And Fatal said, I want to feel like I could die. I totally agree. If I don't feel like there's a chance of me losing this character that I have invested in, then the excitement of the game, basically, it's like somebody pulls the plug and the excitement drains out of the game. As a DM, I don't set out to kill players. In fact, I don't like doing it, and I try everything in my power without cheesing the game, without cheesing the game to make sure it doesn't happen. But you know what? Sometimes it's happened. And we've had a whole show about killing player characters.
Right.
But like I said, I don't set out to do it as a DM, but there's only so far that I will cheese the situation before I say, you know what, you're dead.
Well, and to kind of add on that when it comes, and then we can move on to the next question. We had Age of Empire. The Saturday morning game I have, which actually is Age of Empire. I was trying to think of something else at the time. We've been playing 60 sessions. We just had our 60th session, I think. And one of our combats took 2 parts, took 2 sessions. Half the party dropped.
Oh my God.
Meaning,
when unconscious. Yeah, when unconscious. One player died outright. There was no, it was an aging effect that the chaos creature used. And he's human, and he was already in his 50s. So he was aged 70 years.
This is why, as a human, you should always start out with your character at 5 years old.
Yeah. And it was really fun because I do like using Matt Mercer's Risk of Death, which is the resurrection gets harder every time it's getting used. Well, one of the characters has a boon because she bears a vestige of Ioun, and that boon was used to do an automatic divine intervention. But divinity is always kind of fickle.
Mm-hmm.
So based on what was going on at the time and the interlude between the dwarf and the wizard that were involved, I had them roll on a DC check to see how this would play out. And it was a roll on a reincarnation chart, right? It got acted as reincarnation. He screwed up his first roll because he used 2 same dice. He used 2 0-0, the doubles dice by mistake. He was almost a halfling. Right now he's a standard human, right? Like a muscle human. But then he re-rolled and he re-rolled human. But I brought him back as a 24-year-old human. So he's not a 58-year-old muscular wizard anymore. Now he's a 25-year-old human who is practically unfamiliar with the world from a physical perspective, but now has the mindset of a very upper tier wizard and very skilled. So now he's got this new visual presence that he has to take into consideration. But at the end of that second round of combat, together, the entire team had less than, if you combine the entire team's hit point pool at the end of that combat, it was under 50 points.
And was that an exciting encounter? Was that an exciting?
It was amazing. It was
it
was absolutely amazing.
So 3 things. I have 3 comments about that.
Yeah.
If I can remember them, I might have forgotten one already. So one is
I thought we got him a pill for this problem.
Shut up. One is, see, as a DM, the fact that you are willing to do that I think is awesome. And if it is really a character that the player is invested in and the party is invested in, there are always ways to bring that player back. Okay, it's a game, it's a fantasy game, you know, there's always outs. Point two is on the reincarnation, to leave even that up to a die roll, that's ballsy. That is.
And that was the risk in the reward. The risk was they took out the mid-tier. Yeah. They took out the mid-tier boss, right? The mid-tier, the Shadow Master's destroyed. The Chaos Celestial is destroyed. And now all that's left is the final arc, of the game, which is to go after the Puppet Master.
Oh, and I remember what my third point was, which was
I love Vigo the Third. That's funny.
I love that what you said about you brought him back as a 24-year-old human, but he still had the experiences.
Yeah.
So right there, that adds to the backstory.
The
whole. So I had a character. Gary's referring to. This is when we were kids. I had an elf ranger. That's all I used to play when I was a kid. Elf ranger. And he died like once or twice, and I kept bringing him back. I'm like, oh yeah, it's his cousin, exact same character that came back. It was ridiculous.
But it was just so poignant to the question. It just felt like it fit the question perfectly.
Yeah.
So I like the next question. Can I read the next question, or you want to do it, Bear? I really like this one a lot.
Here,
And I feel like it's a player's answer. Like, I don't really have an answer for this one because I homebrew everything. To me, this is a real player's question.
Sharon, read the question.
Let me read it.
Go ahead. Shut up. Let her read the question.
All right.
You guys have had the stage. Let me have my moment.
I know. But I love this question. It's a great question.
You get first answer then, James.
Yeah.
I'm going to defer to Barry because I'm intrigued.
All right.
Okay. So the question is, do you consider it cheating if a player looks up monster stats mid-battle? I was DMing for the first time a few weeks ago, and during a battle with a monster I knew they couldn't beat, helps move the plot along, so it was necessary. One of the players looked up the HP it had and told the others to give up fighting because of this. This feels like cheating to me. Do you tolerate it?
I'll be quick.
Okay, I'll answer. So
wait, I'll be quick. And then I really want to understand from Barry Bot's new player perspective what she feels as a newer player, even though she's not newer in the sense she's been in 50 plus sessions. Yeah,
my answer is really short.
My answer is even shorter. It's homebrew. Okay. I don't even have to worry about it because I homebrew everything. So your answer is probably yes, it's cheating.
I wouldn't define it as cheating. I would define it as metagaming in the worst way possible. No, I don't tolerate it because I think it sucks and it just ruins it forever.
Yeah, it ruins the experience.
Well, and then also for that guy to be like, oh yeah, guys, you shouldn't do it. We shouldn't play. Like, dude, that kills the game. You're being Debbie Downer over here.
Yep. All right, Barry, have you ever been tempted to open up that monster manual and just a peek? Just a little peek.
I mean, there was a point. There was a point when we started
didn't answer right away.
But there was a point, and again, this was very different when we were kids. But there was a point at which we stopped saying, "Okay, you see 3 ghouls," and instead you see 3, ragged forms, for that very reason.
Right. Yeah.
Well, to answer the question from a player's perspective,
exactly.
I don't even know what I'm fighting. So
that's fair.
I'm coming in there with bright eyes and anticipation here. So I will definitely look it up afterward. I mean, I'm sure if I have more years under the belt, I'll be like, okay, I think I know what I'm fighting. But right now, everything's new to me. I thought a rock was a rock. like Jesus was describing a rock on top of a mountain, and I was like, and he said that
it looks like a rock to me.
And I was like, because like they were using a rock to use for transportation between the upper and lower parts of the city or whatever. And I was like thinking to myself, how are they traveling by rock?
So true. It was great.
Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, let me ask you this: since a lot of people defer, as to Critical Role as like the D&D Bible these days, and I'm not making any judgments on that. Okay, how often do you see Matt Mercer say you see monster name X in front of you? He never does that.
He describes it.
He describes it, and
Actually,
even if somebody knows what it is, as their player, they kind of keep their mouth shut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially if you use that method of just you see this 12-foot tall creature come, grabbing the walls of the cave. You could hear its long nails kind of scrape against the cave. And you can see kind of like sparks coming off. They have this elongated nose and these gray dead eyes and this kind of sallowed, pallor looking skin that's got nodules all over it with little bits of, you can see little tiny mouths on its body that are opening and gasping and kind of, so you could get really fun in that level of creativity to the point where you're so like, they're so into listening to what you're describing, they don't really even give a shit as to whether that's an actual monster.
And I think Torch's comment is spot on.
Yeah, it's a horrible
cheating.
spoiler. Yeah,
It's just a fucking spoiler. Nobody's like spoilers.
Yeah.
So keep your fucking mouth shut.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right, next. What do you got next? Chat, come on. You got to put us on the spot.
Pressure.
Best question gets a free sticker.
Now we're
right on the
driving. All right. So the next question. My players are okay, wait. Let me be. My players are not disrupting my game. They have been creative with their solutions, and I'm having fun as a DM. What am I doing wrong? None of my players disrespect my authority. Whenever there's a disagreement, they would listen and start thinking of new solutions. One got his AC too high, and I gave him a tough battle. The players got excited when he took actual damage and was ecstatic when he won. Why aren't we getting into fights?
Is that question from Matt Mercer in his early days? You know why you're not getting into fights? Because you have attained DM level 100 and you win. You might as well just find something else to do. That's a ridiculous. Is that a real question you found?
That was a real question. And then like one of the commenters said like, "Oh, just throw in alignment."
Do people still use alignment?
Afterthought.
I mean, for the crazies, probably. Who knows?
I think that
Did you just cross your eyes when you said that, Barry?
I think that question is a little ridiculous. If that is the case, you're running a perfect game. Okay, here's an actual. I don't want to cut that short, but I think it's ridiculous.
Ooh, worst campaign or session horror story. Ooh, I want to hear the juicy details.
I don't want to give.
I'm here
details.
for the goss, guys.
I don't want to give details, but someone I was playing with once. Fuck! I fucked that up.
What does the microphone do to you?
No, it's not Jason. I'm kidding. I'm not going to give details, but I will say.
We'll call him Bob.
Yeah.
Or Smirk.
My worst horror stories are when somebody at the table is just so drunk that it is literally disrupting the game for everybody. And
they're like being belligerent.
I have
no, not even belligerent, but just, what are we doing? What did you say? I'm rolling. It's just like every round takes 5 minutes, and it fucking turns it into shit for everybody. And it's awkward because they're normally not a disruptive player. It's a really awkward, shitty situation.
So 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to play as a player, and I found this great group of like 9 people that were showing up to play. We'd all kicked off a
Whoa.
0 session. We were playing at a guy's apartment and turned it into this great atmosphere. What we didn't know is that one of the people part of the party, part of the group, was a traditional alcoholic. And rather than be honest about that with everybody so that we could preclude alcohol from the session, this one guy who was hosting the session was using alcohol as an icebreaker and felt that everybody was handling it correctly. There was such a severe situation that the group never reformed. It completely collapsed. It blew up that night. It was an hour-long just nightmare that never had a chance of recovery. And
that is, you know what is amazing to me is that our answers were exactly the fucking same.
It really was.
That's fucked up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy the way that works.
No, so there you go. Here we go. Thank you for joining us. The Dark One's Zion.
Oh, Dark One Sign. Oh my God, I haven't heard from you in like forever.
Thanks for joining. Sharon, you want to read that question? Should
I go Valley Girl? No, just kidding. So one of my groups just finished coming down a wizard tower full of monsters. At the bottom of the tower was a 20-man raid group. I thought I was being funny. My players told the group they were friends with the master of the tower. The 20-man raid group decided to try to restrain the players. The players' response was to throw a fireball.
My response would be, as a DM, what level are you casting that at?
So here's where, here's where DM's discretion and mechanics fudging and homebrew comes into play. You know, like, first of all, if it's 20-man raid group, I would say, okay, you cast fireball, roll the damage. And then I would secretly somehow divide that and say, all right, you take out, you char 4 guys and you half damage 3 more, and then there's still 20 guys. And you know what? One of those 20 guys happens to be a priest or something, and you're all, commanded to with a 9th level command spell. I mean, again, basically as a DM, I would kind of cheat without making it seem like I was cheating.
I'd let it play out and have fun with it.
Yeah,
it's almost likely to turn into a pursuit encounter.
Yeah,
it may start that way, but you could really take you could really clay make it and turn it into something really fun. Like,
well, okay, let me ask you a question though. This kind of goes into Fatal's next question of how do you deal with murder hobos? To me, that fireball question is that murder hoboing, or is that their true? I don't want to deny anybody's response to a situation, but there are times at which it's just like, okay, your answer to everything is to fireball it. What the fuck?
I think I want to play one of those characters.
I'm asking you guys.
Well, you never want to take away too much agency, right? You never want to. You're always tiptoeing that line of creativity, agency. Are they secretive murder hobos that don't know that they're murder hobos yet? Is the theme so dark that they start off as kind of lighthearted characters, and the theme has kind of dragged them into dark spaces and dark places, and it's altered their thinking of how they interact with things. I think it's all contextual, right? It's based on the context of how something happens. It may be a precursor to something that leads to poor gaming experience, or you may turn it around and say, yeah, you instantly vaporize 5 of the guys, the other 15 pull out their weapons and start running towards you. What do you do? And they say, we're getting the hell out of here, and they start running. You have this pursuit encounter, and maybe it turns into something else, and maybe it doesn't. I'm just not a fan of traditional absolutism in the sense that certain contexts are presumed. You need to know the context, I think, to really kind of get the feel for that, and not be too presumptive.
That's a really good answer, and I will concede that point. You're right. It's about contact. That's a great answer.
And these are really great questions too.
You've converted me on that one.
All right, it's been an
Jason
hour.
Jason won. Well, wait a second. We got a couple.
It's been an hour. We gotta go, man. We promised ourselves. Remember, we promised.
When did we make that promise?
I don't know. I just made that up right now.
You got to go to the bathroom or something?
I always have to go to the bathroom. I'm 50.
Fatal, have you ever had a group derail a campaign so bad that you had to take a week off to replan the campaign?
Ooh,
I don't know.
Always a good question.
Yeah,
that's a good
I don't know
one.
that I necessarily had to take a week off, but I definitely had to creatively find out how to creatively end the session so I could plan and rethink it. Yes.
And step into a rage room.
Yeah.
That's a really good example because the Friday night group, which is the Queen's Gambit, which was a reboot of a previous group, 4 of the 5 players came back. I only had to fill 1 seat. And those 5 players now, they had an interaction on their 5th session, and I wasn't expecting the response at all. I thought I'd set the mood very appropriately. I thought I set the interaction very appropriately. And their first response is to not deal with the fact they just, let out a creature that's linked to Halas, a very powerful wizard within the Critical Role world, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They didn't deal with it. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I'm jumping 24 chapters ahead. What happens if they don't deal with it here? And I'm like, oh, I did write that. All right. And then I go back and I'm just like, I always presume things will work well, but I always write to the possibility that I have to have an alternative ready to go. And that's my framework style of writing. Assume, presume, and then write the alternative out because it's eventually going to happen.
Yeah, but sometimes it's so unexpected. Night Torch, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Sometimes it can be so unexpected that you just it wasn't in the future plans, and you're just like, well, yeah, I need a minute to reassess.
Oh, that was one of the subject matters I want to take up in the future. Campaign writing by framework. I want to circle back and do an episode where we talk about how to write campaigns. I know we always talked about how to start campaigns and, the ideas of modules versus open world, but I'd love to do an episode where we actually talk about how you write a campaign. To kind of help, bolster up those up and coming DMs.
Yeah, that would be a very good DM.
I think it was one of the ones I meant to tell while we were on break that one week, and I totally forgot to write it down, and now it popped up in my head again.
I actually just wrote it down along with the Shadowfell Raven Queen lore episode.
There you go. The number of times I've had to relocate part of the dungeon or cave system when the players throw a wrench into things.
But again, if you do it, nobody knows what's going. There's a reason there's a DM screen. Nobody knows what's going on behind it, or nobody should know what's going on behind it. So, I've said this before. If as a DM, if you just act like this is all part of the plan and you know what you're doing, and you don't panic, then it keeps the continuity flowing, and the players are none the wiser.
Yeah,
you guys are playing action figures behind the DM screen. Come on.
The secret is out in the news headlines tomorrow. Dungeons and Dragons is a fraud. People playing action figures behind the DM screen.
That's what's really going on.
Yeah.
So true.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Lawfully Chaotic Q&A style. I think we had a lot of really good
always just a prop.
Well, that's good to know now, Gary. Thanks.
We had.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sharon.
We had a lot of really great questions. Wow, my words are really bad tonight. I'm tired. I did training today.
That's all right.
But yes, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode. It was a really fun and engaging chat. A lot has been said and a lot of emotions have been brought. Guys, where can we find you at? Brian, go. Woo, right.
Well, first of all, Sharon, thank you as always for putting together those notes. Those are really good questions. This was a lot of
Yes.
fun, so appreciate it. Appreciate that. Thank you. As always, you can find me at RPG&Co on Instagram. That's the best place to get a hold of me. But you can also visit linktree/rpgandco.com. That's got all of my links. Reach out anytime. I'm always happy to chat, talk about games and gaming and stuff. Oh, and games.
And where can we find you, storyteller Jason?
You can find me over at Twitch at TTRPG Academy, or you can find me in the Twitterverse for now. I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay in the Twitterverse.
Are you verified? Did you pay your $8?
I know, right? I don't know if that conduit of conversation is going to survive such a significant change in reality. So I'm not entirely sure what my social media channel is going to be other than Twitch and Discord. I really like those two places. Especially Discord, it offers up a lot of opportunity to speak with people and talk about running games and building games and teaching folks how to run remote games. Teach, learn, play. It's always my thing. So
thank you for joining Twisted, Matt. And you have a pretty robust Discord server going, Jason.
Yeah, it usually hovers between 380 and 405, depending on people coming and going. I wish people would discourse more and talk about wanting to learn more about playing online remotely, but it's the holiday season. It's getting ready for travels and getting ready for the busy life of the holidays, and I'm never gonna force people to talk if they're readers and listeners and that's their preference. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Cool.
Great. And as always, you can catch me over here on Instagram at BarryBot, and also catch me on Saturdays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time on the Graying Lands campaign. You can find me at the TTRPG Academy's Twitch channel and YouTube. You could also find me over at the RPG&Co's Twitch channel too. You can find me everywhere, so you have no excuse to not show up.
Just remember, I'm gonna actually concede. I'm gonna voluntarily fail my die roll. I'm gonna concede tonight.
I always knew you were conceited,
but just I am very conceited. Just remember, no show next week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
After.
Yep. I rolled a 15.
Be sure to set your scales back 15 pounds.
I already did that in anticipation of Christmas and Halloween. And
oh wait, I got one more thing I wanted to say. Remember, check out Long Rest Games, and then also don't forget to check out Crazy Cultist. Rocket House Games, written and created by Jordan Davenport. It's fun, it's simple, it's a good party game. So check it out.
All on Kickstarter?
No, this is
and happy Thanksgiving to our British brothers and sisters in arms, as you are the originators of our pilgrimage.
Yes. No, just check out Rocket House. Just look up Crazy Cultist Rocket House Games. Yeah. It's super fun.
I rolled a 15. What'd you get, Barry?
I got an 11.
All right. So good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Be safe. Be kind. Don't forget to play a game. It's good for your mental health. Enjoy your week off. Everybody enjoy Thanksgiving. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.